Well, Chris, welcome to the Change Your Filter podcast.
Paul, I've been looking forward to this. You and I know each other, and I don't know if we've talked like a lot in the last couple of years, so I'm very excited to talk to you today.
I was thinking about that as I prepared for this because we've known each other. I moved here in 2015 and met you shortly thereafter. So I've known you for a long time, but I really don't know you. We've had some conversations and we
worked on an interesting problem or two.
Yeah, and probably will more. So, but you've interested me. I've been drawn to you and wanted to get to know you a little bit more and more importantly, share part of your story because I think it's really interesting. So
yeah. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you.
My pleasure. Well, we'll jump right in. One of the first times that we were working around one another, it was in an event up in Asheville, probably 9 or 10 years ago. Sure. And you said something that as I repeat it often, but I want to hear your perspective on it. You had opened up a presentation. You said, hey, there's parts of my career where I'm in a helicopter and there's parts of my career I'm in a submarine. So I wanted to understand what you meant by that and then find out which one you're in right now.
Well, I've forgotten that event. That was a great event. I learned a couple good lessons at that. If you work at venture-backed companies, as an operator, as one of the founders, one of the owners of the place, the amount of focus that's required from you in order to make the thing successful is really significant. And so, when I choose to be part of one of those teams, I really commit to it. And I refer to that as being in a submarine. Yeah. And, when submarines go out, they leave port and they'll surface for months. And so you're there doing the job 24/7. It is what you're doing in an incredibly focused way. And that's how I function when I'm in a startup. And when I met you, I was with Payzer. And I was definitely on that submarine for 9 years. And I think that that focus is it's a price you have to pay and it's a gift that you get because you are assigned something that's really critical to you and you have to be focused on it.
We're going to talk about Payzer. It won't dominate the conversation, but I've got a lot of questions. There's a lot of history there and curiosity. But through your career, you've been through the PC revolution and then the internet revolution. And now there's other things going on in the world, but you took some time off. You've done some big exits. You've done some small exits. You've had a lot of different entrepreneurial things. What were you doing between 2001 and 2005?
Well, so that's kind of the helicopter, right? Is when my career has afforded me the economic and professional opportunity to take a little time off, what I've tried to do is be very thoughtful about serving the larger landscape of my own life and my career. And so from 2001 to 2005, Paul, I was mostly coaching Little League Baseball in Indiana, Virginia. I was doing some consulting. I was working with companies. I maintained a semi-persuasive professional veneer, but I was mostly investing in my kids and my family. Yeah. And I really cherished that time because my boys at that time were sort of going through early adolescence. And I was around them all the time. Yeah. And those are some of the best memories of my life.
And then jumped right back into the fire shortly thereafter.
Yeah, I did. And that's kind of been my thing is I've done, when I get committed to something professionally, I'm very committed to it. I don't go to the community events. I don't go out and I don't do that. I'm very focused on creating enterprise value on the thing that I'm working on. And when I am afforded the opportunity to have a different perspective on life, I embrace that. I travel, I read, I spend a lot of time with family and friends. And I'm in a season now in my life where I kind of, for the first time, really can balance those things because I'm not wholly committed to any single endeavor professionally. I'm quite engaged and pretty busy. And I also have time to go screw around and have fun.
Is this what you expected this phase of your career to look and feel like?
I don't know that I had an expectation. I think that it is good. I find myself wanting to own something again, right? And I kind of want to go out on the submarine again, I think. But I'm not sure. But I'm very grateful for the moments that I get, independent of how they're structured in terms of my engagement. And I have a meeting at 11 with a client. I'm really excited about the meeting. I'm very excited. We're going to talk about pricing. and I'm psyched.
You mentioned reading. You had shared with me recently you read poetry every day. What's up with that?
So when I was a young person, I was very fortunate in that my high school English teacher was a genius, and he introduced me to class poetry. And a lot of people sort of recoil when they hear about poetry, but poetry is such a magical way to understand the world and yourself. And so I majored in English literature, and I read a lot of classic poetry. And I think that, it's surprising because, poets in the 18th century, 17th century were dealing with the same issues that we deal with. The anxiety you feel about AI, there's a poem about it.
Yeah.
And so I find that I enjoy it, and I also learn from it. Like I always say, it helps me understand the world, but it also helps me understand myself. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, no, not classic poetry for me, right? I encourage you, just go find the poem Ulysses by Alfred Lord Tennyson. And if you're a person that's engaged in a struggle to make something valuable and to make something of your life, it's for you. It's so for you. And it's 3 pages.
Okay. I will link that in the show notes. Thank you. You mentioned that your English teacher was a genius. And I've read you reference other geniuses. Tell me a story about Thomas Martin.
Tommy. So I was very fortunate in the early 90s. I worked at Dell Computer Corporation, and being at Dell then was great because, PCs emerged onto the economic landscape. When I started in 1989, Paul, it's hard to imagine this, but there was only one personal computer for every 10 white-collar workers in America in 1989.
Wow.
Which is kind of mind-blowing. Yeah, right. And 10 years later, that ratio was 1-to-1, right? So rapid growth. And so if you were lucky enough to work at Michael Dell's company, which was the best company in the industry at that time, you were surrounded by opportunity and great people. And I worked for a man named Tom Martin, and Tom ran marketing. I was a product manager and a marketing manager for him. And Tom was a person who is a person who blends really high standards with extreme insight at high speed and an incredible sense of humor. And, I was 26 and I was working for him, and I thought I was pretty smart. And he disabused me of that notion on a regular basis in a way that built me up. He would challenge my work and me to be better. And I think it's really changed the trajectory of my life.
Would you say that period of time at Dell was the most formative years of your career, or would you look at another era?
Well, I like to think that today is pretty formative. Yes, it was incredibly formative for me to be at Dell during that time, but I learned a tremendous amount of web methods, and I learned a lot of the Analytical League, and I learned a lot at Keyden and at Get Feedback and at Payzer. And, I think it was very formative, but I think I'm still evolving. And I think that, every era, like teaching a class has been formative. So, but being around Tom was lucky.
Yeah.
Have you ever worked for a genius, Paul?
I have met a few who were like actual geniuses, but I don't know. No offense to anybody I've worked for. I've worked for some really smart people, but when you're among someone who's just, they're different.
Well, I got to see Tom a month ago, and I asked him, what should I do with my life? And he said, dude, you're going to live a long time. So don't think of it as anywhere close to over.
Yeah.
He said, you got 30, 35 years left. And I was like, and that really affected me. I've really been thinking about that.
It's a lot of time. When I thought about this, inviting you onto the podcast, one of the themes I wanted to explore was this, what happened at Payzer, the $250 million exit. And the way I describe it as the exit that kind of flew under the radar. Nobody really talked about. It happened at the peak of people who were more popular and growing faster than Payzer that seemed to get all the mind share of what I would consider the customer in your market. Speaking of service side, of course, we know what happened at the end, but bring me back to the early days. And I have so many questions, but recount your history at Payzer and what went down there.
So I was not one of the founders at Payzer. Payzer was founded by Joe Giordano and Doug Little with a big assist from a woman named Christy Mulher. And they had the idea of offering a payments platform to home improvement contractors. and they scuffled around a little bit to find a market, to find the right kind of market to fit in. And they landed on HVAC, started to get some traction, raised a Series A, and I actually invested at the Series A, and went without a salary for a year in exchange for equity. And then they basically called me their partner, right? So I wasn't a founder, but I functioned like a co-founder after a little while. And, I was the 5th employee. We'd never had a salesperson. And that's really what I'm good at, is helping build sales and marketing engines to go grow something. And, Paul, it was, we had an exceptional board, and we had a very disciplined, focused, undramatic march to the finish line. Joe, Doug, and I are all like adults who have done things, and we all got in the Submarine, and our board was really supportive, and we were really focused on our customers. And, if other people didn't celebrate or know about our exit, we did.
Yeah.
And we did just fine knowing about it. And it was great. Everybody who invested in the deal did really well. And it's actually where I met my current partner, a guy named Don Rainey.
And if legend has it, it's one of the most successful exits in at least the Charlotte business startup world. Is that right?
Yeah. So I'm not hyper literate on, what the best exits are. I know Avid Exchange was a good deal.
Yeah.
Everybody who invested in our deal did really, really well.
Yeah.
And that, that included the people who came in really early and the people who came in really late, because we were really good at finding product market fit. We were really good at execution, and we were really good at cash management.
Yeah.
And so we did not overcapitalize the business. And that may have, if we had taken in more capital, we might have grown more.
Yeah.
But we delivered a tremendous return to everybody who was involved.
Let's talk about execution. By the way, when I met you, I always just, in my mind, you were an ops guy. I never pegged you as a sales guy. And I mean that as a compliment, by the way. So then when I look back at your career, man, you've got some sales chops. But talk about, going from 5 to the team you built and the revenue and all of that.
So, Paul, a book that people like, and if you're interested in selling, a really good book is called The Qualified Sales Leader. I don't know if you're aware of it. Mm-hmm. But I think that what it takes to be a leader of a selling operation or a go-to-market operation, and what it takes to be an exceptional individual salesperson, there's some overlap, but not a lot.
Yeah.
And the very best salesperson that you have probably wouldn't make the best leader for the group, and vice versa. If you want to run an operation, what you need to have is a real focus on how the machine works.
Yep.
And how to optimize things so that over time we continue to improve.
Yeah.
Right. And if you want to close an individual deal, that's a different skill set. And so, I was a sales rep of the year at Dell, when I was a kid. And so I can do that, but that's not who I am now.
Yeah.
You asked about execution. Execution is really about discipline, right? It's about understanding the metrics that drive to enterprise value, and then understanding the actions that drive those metrics. Yep. And then very consistently, and that's the real key word, consistently applying oversight and sort of insight into what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because I really do believe this, and I think this is still true today in the AI era, is the way that we behave, the way that we do our job today matters to the quality of the inputs. And if the quality of the inputs are directed to the right outputs, we can create enterprise value. And so I think the quality of my work matters. I think the quality of your work matters. I think the quality of Addie Cannon's work today at Contractor and Comments, I think it matters. And so people do better when they're coached, and they do better when they're overseen. So that's what I mean by it.
Yeah. And for those that are listening, I have been blamed or accused of trying to become Payzer. And I do not deny it, because there are ways that you guys executed against the, gravity of other things going on in the industry and without permission.
You've obliquely talked about this. We didn't have the most money.
Right.
And we didn't have the broadest product, and we still won really big.
Yeah. What were those, you mentioned, the actions and the inputs. Talk about what are the actions that had the most leverage during your growth years there?
The things that always really influence something are the quality of the new prospects that you bring into a pipeline, right? And understanding how to measure that quality, right? And we built a pretty good rubric around what a good one was, right? And very often what you can do is build a really high quality rubric about what a bad one is and then just try not to get those. But, in marketing, it's really challenging to bring in good ones, like it's really hard because everybody always wants more leads. And as you drive more leads, the marginal quality of the next one tends to decline. And so I think defining what a good one was really important. And then how you handle those people. And, with contractors, they're a unique target audience. I love them very much. But they're small business owners, or they were in our era. We didn't have quite that private equity footprint that you experience today. They're small business owners who take their company very seriously. And so you have to take their time and their problems and their interests very seriously. And you have to be very transparent and very honest and very clear with them. Any fancy footwork or opacity, they don't like that.
So thinking back to the sales motion, and you mentioned, marketing, obviously, like it's really tricky to get your ideal customer, and quality really, really matters. How did you guys break through that? What were some of the points of leverage?
Well, we had a secret trick that we used the first several years, and it was airplane tickets. We found that if we put ourselves with high quality territory managers, with high quality channel partners, and if we visited them in person, that they would literally walk us in the door of the best prospects.
Yeah.
And if we tried to do things digitally, we rarely got exposure to those people.
Yeah.
And so for 5 years up until COVID, the unit of measure for us was what we call a ride day, which was when one of our people would travel to a beautiful part of the United States of America. And I did it a bunch too. And we would walk into a contractor's office and tell them the story and hear their story and connect with them. And that was extraordinarily effective. From a lead gen standpoint, when you get into a territory manager's truck, you're going to go see good ones.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen.
Would that be, if you were to, enter that business today, would that be the same model, or would you lean more into all of that?
That certainly isn't where we start.
Yeah.
First month that had a little team, we made 4,000 outbound calls, and we booked 3 meetings.
Yeah.
And we found out that these contractors are pretty heavily shot. You probably have that problem today, right?
Yeah.
So we said, well, that's going to be a hard thing to scale. So what's our alternative? And so we thought about a lot of things. We went to a lot of events. We thought about a lot of things. We said physical mail. And then we decided to try the ride days, and that worked. And so what would I do today is I would not be overconfident that my experience from then would translate into today. And I would do what I always advocate entrepreneurs do, which is experiment with an open mind and look at the results. Right? Find the things that actually generate return. Make sure you have the right metrics and find the things that generate return, and then see how broadly you can replicate those. Because there's not a formula for winning in sales and marketing, right? There's not, like if there was, we'd all use it. And each company that wins in sales and marketing, they win in their own little unique way. So I think I don't know where I'd start if I was going up that market today. How do y'all do it, Paul? Are y'all mostly digital or events, or what do you?
A little bit of everything. Yeah, there's so many different tests that we've done, but it really comes down to in-person things like events, channel partners, digital marketing, which again it's I think everyone assumes there's a, not to overuse the word silver bullet, but it's just like, oh, if X then Y, so just pour more into X and you'll get Y. And this interview is going to do well with my like founder peers, because they're all asking the same questions. We're all looking for the same thing. And I think you answered it right. You have to be experimental.
Yeah. And like, if there's anybody who's listening to this who wants to talk about it, I love talking about this. Right. And I learn every time I talk about somebody who's got go-to-market stuff. And like with one company I'm looking with right now, as an example, right? Their clients, their targets, Paul, all of them are on LinkedIn, all of them, right? And like, I think for a lot of your clients or your prospects, they're not, right? And so we're embarking on a strategy of just publishing the smartest stuff that my founder says on LinkedIn as articles. And I'm confident that they're going to come to him. Just know that because he's incandescently smart when he talks about his market. And so that wouldn't have worked at Payzer at all. Like absolutely just wouldn't have worked at Payzer at all. And so I think a person has to remain very open to channels and ideas and potentials to go try things. In the class that Rob and I teach, we talk about marketing, and I think we talked about 13 different marketing channels. So, well, I would try them all. I would try them all.
Tell me about what you're doing at Charlotte. You mentioned teaching a class.
So the University of North Carolina, Charlotte is a large public institution here located in Charlotte. And the Belk School of Business is the MBA college. And my close friend and esteemed colleague, Rob Cummings, and I teach a graduate level course called Entrepreneurship. And what we try to do is we provide a survey to young people to prompt them to consider entrepreneurship. And the fundamental conceit behind what we talk about is this, is that, people who take the risk to own something don't necessarily work all that much harder than their best employees. But the rewards that you can get by taking the risk to be an owner or an entrepreneur are substantially outsized compared to an employee. And so a person should not, in my opinion, move directly into a career as an employee without carefully considering the benefits and the access to entrepreneurship in the United States of America. And so we teach on those subjects, but we also, Paul, I gotta have you come. We also have panelists. And so every week we have people who come in who have done the journey that you're on and that I've been on, and they tell their story. And the effect on our students is that they see people who are like them and they say, I can do it. There's a magical entrepreneur in Charlotte today. His name is Stephanie Betters. And Stephanie has a company called Left Main REI. And she came in 2 weeks ago and talked about how the main motivation behind her starting her own business was how upset it made her when people told her she couldn't. And so many of our students were like, that's me. That's me. And so like, that's what we try to do. But it's a great class.
Yeah. When you hear founder stories over and over and over again, which I did through podcasts for years while driving all around in a corporate job, at some point the light bulb clicks where you're like, we really are just all the same. It's your risk threshold and your belief in yourself and where you're willing to place your bets. And, if you can bet on yourself, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
There's never been a better time or place in the history of the planet, in my opinion, to be somebody else's employee than the United States right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And even though that's true, it's 100 times better to be an entrepreneur because you just get so much more, both out of the experience, the intrinsic part, and if you are successful, the extrinsic part is amazing.
So looking back at Payzer, this is sort of a layup question, but what would you have done differently? I mean, the outcome is obviously worth, reveling, but what would you have done differently?
Well, that's a good question. There are a couple of alternate universe versions of what we did, right? I'm proud of what we did. I don't look back on it and think, oh, there's a big mistake somewhere in the middle. I think I would raise prices on credit cards a little earlier. I think that we could have considered going for a significantly larger raise earlier in the process to try and go a little bigger. I think we also could have considered making a lighter weight version of our CRM, Payzer, which is now called WEX FSM. The company that bought us renamed it. A little earlier in the cycle, something less comprehensive that offered to the market earlier. But Paul, I look back on it and I think that we were pretty focused. I mean, it was unusual, and our board members really commented on this. It was unusual in how linear it was. We just kind of walked to the end zone is what we did. Yeah.
And if in that same spot right now, same product to a degree, current market conditions, AI, do you ever wonder what that would have been like now?
Well, I think that, I work with a lot of technology companies. I think that AI is going to dramatically change the expectation of users on software. Okay. I think that users are going to have less tolerance for conforming to workflows and processes and input methods that feel taxing to them. I think that, people are going to want to talk to your product as opposed to input data into it canonically. And I think people are going to have very, very high expectations on reporting and visibility. I mean, Claude has really changed. I'm really good at Excel. Claude has changed my expectation of reporting. And so I think that if you're starting a software company now, the advantage is that you are going to need fewer people, right? And you're going to be able to get to market faster. The disadvantage is going to be that customer expectations around pricing are going to be very, very different. I think you should anticipate that you're going to have to be involved in transaction or outcome pricing as opposed to seat-based licensing, or this exclusively seat-based licensing. And I think customers are going to think that it needs to work, because telling them, we're going to have that feature out in 3 quarters, that they're not going to accept. What do you think?
The thing that I'm thinking about right now is, where is the moat? If product is no longer the moat, if your differentiators are no longer product, if product can just be built by anybody, what are those tactile things that keep all the competing products away from you? We've been able to, this isn't about our company today, but we've been able to do some of that. But, someone can build a version of what we do pretty quickly now. And we see them popping up all the time. And so I don't know, it's going to be different. I mean, is it too much like thinking about the hardware PC revolution, then of course the internet revolution, you've been to that. Now AI, what are some patterns you saw?
I saw it when I was like maybe 18 years old. I went to a print shop. Okay. And I saw this sign in the print shop, and it's been in my mind ever since I saw it. It had big words on it. It said fast, cheap, good, pick any two. Right. And I think that where we're at right now with AI, and if you talk about AI, in March of 2026, you're liable to look like a fool in June, right? Because, things change so fast. But, you can get something fast and cheap now, I'm still a little skeptical on good, because the rapid prototyping and initial generation of something is like, it's a feeling of euphoria that most people have never experienced, because they make some and they think, holy cow, right? But if you get in and use it quite a lot, right? Because I made an app last fall for my family, and I felt great about it until people started using it, right? And I think that I'm answering your question about like, where's the moat? I think the moat really is going to come down to quality, right?
Yeah.
Because people's expectations on quality isn't going to change. I think it's going to come down to service, right? And distribution and the creation of economic value. If you're creating economic value, Paul, for homeowners and for contractors using contractor commerce, I think it's not going to give them significant reason to go look around for alternatives. But if you're a rent seeker and you've got 500 licenses and only 450 of them are being used, and you're inflexible on those terms and your service isn't good and all that kind of stuff, it's like, that's a vulnerable position, you know?
You mentioned walking, through the finish line or through the end zone and it being relatively undramatic. Tell me about the first 48 hours afterwards. Like, what was the emotional feeling? What were some of your thoughts?
It was good. It was good. I was happy that the people who were shareholders in the business were going to get liquid on their shares. I also knew that it was highly likely that my journey with those people was over. I am better suited for earlier stage, smaller things. And the company who acquired us, who I admired, they're called Wex. They're a corporation and they're run really well, but they're run like a corporation. And so for me, it was very bittersweet. I was going to get some money and I was happy that people around me were going to get some money and it was a win, it's a win, but I also knew it was over.
Yeah. And you knew it was over because you had decided, I don't work for big companies and that's not who I am? Or could you actually tangibly feel the change that you weren't going to want to be a part of?
I worked for Dell. When I started at Dell, it was really small. And I think there were 3,000 employees when I started, something like that. And when I left, it was 50,000. All right. And so and during that time, I sold to the Fortune 2000 a lot. There was a time when I had been to the buildings of like 170 of the Fortune 500. Right. So I was out selling a lot. And so I know what big companies are like, or at least I have a perception of what big companies are like. And I think big companies are about consensus and compliance and planning and sort of moving forward collectively at a slow pace. That doesn't fit well with the way that I like to live my professional life. And Wex has been extraordinarily successful, but I could just tell that was kind of the way they wanted, that they were going to operate, and that wasn't going to be a great fit for me. And then a very odd thing happened just while we were doing the integration, because I was going to stay for a while and help. While we were doing the integration, I got sick. I got influenza A, which is, I don't recommend it to anyone. And so while they were going through sort of some of the initial integration stuff, I was literally not able to do anything for a couple of weeks. And so during that window, after I came back, it was clear that there was a lot of momentum that was going on and it didn't include me. So I just stepped out. And so instead of sticking around for a little while and really experiencing it, I was gone. December 22nd was my last day. We sold it November 1, and December 22nd was my last day.
Did any of that affect how you felt about yourself, or did it impact your ego? I mean, what was that like from being the guy who,
So I love winning. I really love winning. And it was a win. I mean, There's just no two ways about it. Payzer was a big win. And I played a huge role in making that happen. I wasn't the only person, but, ask anybody. I was a big part of it. And I was really proud of that. And, like I said earlier, I'm not afraid of the future. I'm not afraid of ambiguity. I'm not afraid of the next chapter because I've learned a lot and grown a lot every time I've taken on a new chapter and a new adventure. And, it's not poetry, but, Heraclitus says no man steps in the same river twice, right? Like I'm a growing, changing person just like you. And having a new canvas, a new opportunity to sort of go be a version of me, that's exciting.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel bereft or lost. I didn't miss Slack. I didn't, all that stuff. I was happy,
Good. You talk a lot about measurement and inputs, and you work with founders and CEOs and business owners today on measuring the right thing. What are some metrics in your personal life that are important that should be measured and tracked? And
in my personal life?
Yeah.
Okay. So I care about my weight. I care about my VO2 max. I care about how much I sleep. I care about how many pages I read every day. I care about how much time I spend with my face in the sunlight. I care about how much time I spend with my wife. I care about how much time I spend with my kids and with my friends. I don't measure all those things objectively the way that you would, but I keep track of them.
Yeah.
I
mean, has there been a time where you've maybe optimized the wrong metric? Thought something was important? I mean, the things you just listed that's the key to happiness.
This might sound curious. Sometimes I think I should have worked a little more, right? Because I was involved in some ecosystems where I could have been involved with some great companies, and instead I chose, family kind of stuff. I don't regret that. I think about it. You can counterfactual yourself into feeling bad about everything.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to. And so I try to stay away from that. I mean, I give myself an A-, maybe a B+, but something like that.
When you work with CEOs, operators, founders, and try to get to what they should be measuring today, what patterns do you see, or what's kind of the low-hanging fruit that most people are missing?
It's a really great question. The seminal question is what we're measuring something that our people internally can modify on their own discretion? Or is it a metric that counts external behavior by other participants in the market? Okay. Let me illustrate that. There's one company that I work at where they were paying SDRs based on the deals that got created. Okay. And the people who could create the deals were the SDRs. All right. So naturally, since the SDRs could create deals when they wanted to, guess what? Guess what percentage of their deals got created in the last 3 days of the month? Not 10%, right? Substantially more. And they were by far the lowest quality, right? And so I think that the market is willing to teach me and talk to me and educate me every single day if I'm humble enough to listen. Okay? And so I don't care about how many meetings we book. I care about how many meetings get attended by a decision maker and they stay 10 minutes. Okay? Those seem like sort of the same, you could call those meetings, but those are two really different definitions. And so if the definition, the discrete, detailed definition, doesn't really tie to something that's external to us, man, it's in trouble with me. It's in trouble with me because anytime you modify it from the internally fungible thing to something that really measures discrete market activity, the whole thing looks worse. It just looks terrible.
When I think about what you said earlier in the conversation about go-to-market should be a series of tests. There's 13 or 15 things you can do in big marketing with constantly testing. Looking over to the other side of the equation on the human side, so compensation plans, incentive structure, those sort of things. Is that similar or is that a little more?
No, it's a great question. Selling is an art and a science, right? You will get what you compensate for, right? I mean, you will. And so you have to be very cautious about what you compensate. Like at Dell, as an example, we compensated people for collected revenue, right? So as a consequence, our salespeople cared about collections, right? And if you want your salespeople to not focus on collections, just pay them on what they book, right? really subtle differences, really small changes. And so like objectively, there's a lot there. Subjectively, the way that people choose to sell or interact with prospects or the market, that is more of a training, coaching, self-motivation thing. And I think that's an area today where AI can make an enormous difference, because products like Gong have, in my opinion, just scraped the surface on how to help salespeople do better at their job. But because it's a big horizontal platform, like it just has kind of big generic metrics. But the way that a contractor commerce salesperson should be selling is different than the way that a Jackrabbit Technologies person should be selling, which is different than the way that a fast break AI person should be selling, et cetera. And so the tools that are available for us now allow us to build agent technology that can evaluate selling activities in meeting and out of meeting based on a back-tested rubric that works for you, right? And I'm finding that salespeople embrace that, because they think that if it's coaching from a machine, they accept it differently than coaching from a person, especially if they think it's been back-tested and it works.
And it's efficient and rigid and impersonal and can be, it's so interesting. Like, there's not enough actual, well, think back to your Payzer days. You can only ride along with so many people and attend sales calls with so many people, and then shift into the COVID era, watch some Zoom recordings for an hour and take notes. That's done. You don't need to do that anymore.
So it's interesting. Like, it takes me an hour and a half to watch an hour meeting.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
My agent can watch 4 meetings in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. But Paul, I would say to you, the thing that agentic technology has done for me in terms of reviewing sales calls is I've trained mine to highlight the moments where things go especially good or especially bad. Joint personal review of those situations, magic.
Yeah. And you're in your current role, you're doing that with the operating businesses you're working with today.
Some, yeah, I do. Yeah.
Good.
I do. I really like helping salespeople improve. I really do.
Yeah.
I like sales.
It's a big leverage point that is often overlooked.
I think, I was talking to a private equity friend of mine, I think the lowest hanging fruit in every business in the world, one of them, is if you can improve the rate at which your salespeople are converting prospects into customers by any fraction, all the economics that flow through are just magic. And so if they can just go from 12% to 12.5%, oh shit, we can get a new couch for the lobby. I mean, like, so many good things happen when you do that, and not enough attention gets paid to it.
Is there a point of, and this might not be the right phrase, but a point of diminishing return? Once you get to 30, 35, 40% conversion, then is the bottleneck somewhere else? Is it product price, product market? Like, what is that?
Yeah, well, I do think there's a natural sort of ceiling. It varies for every company. I think most companies are a long way away from that ceiling. I think most companies are a long way away from that ceiling. And honestly, one of the ways that you can really improve your conversion rate, is just take the lowest performers out. Just give the at-bats to somebody with a better batting average. And so, that's part of it too.
So this is a selfish question. I feel okay asking these selfish questions because I have a lot of people that are in my seat that will listen to this and part of my groups or whatever. So I don't feel that bad. Speaking of lowest performer out, the concept of round robin. I mean, this is a really tactical question, but like, should leads be routed based off of quality of rep and performance? So there should be some even distribution or geography. Like, what's that look like in your mind?
So we at Payzer controversially went from me assigning leads to a round robin thing. And part of the idea was it would be so much more efficient for me and my time. And conversion went down by about 8%, on a base, as a consequence. I feel like as the owner of the business, you're tasked with creating enterprise value. If I had to put my thumb on the scale sometimes and give the good ones to our best people, the people who I know would close it. It's just how it is. And so round robin, I think it's popularized and shared by people who have never had to make a number and who are fascinated by a concept that they call fairness. And I'm not advocating for being unfair, but the job of the go-to-market team is to maximize our output. And if there's a marketing channel that was underperforming, we'd give it less budget. Why would we treat salespeople differently?
When you're building a team, you've worked in all sorts of different worlds, from SaaS to big corporate. When you're building a team, what are you looking for?
I think it's really important that a person that you're hiring has some awareness and familiarity with the industry in which they're going to work. If they don't know the semantics and the vernacular of the space where they're going to be selling, they're not going to build trust and have credibility with prospects. And so not everyone's going to have that, but they have to be willing to learn it. And so I think it's really critical. I give people an assessment, basically a vocabulary quiz about the industry that we're in, just to find out if they know anything, right? Because if they know nothing, they need to be truly exceptional in other ways. Okay. Number two, I need somebody who is ruthlessly honest, even when it's bad. A lot of salespeople will tell you great things all the time, and then when it's time to produce the numbers, they're not what you would be led to believe. And it's because there's a lot of salespeople who just won't tell you the actual truth. So I really look for people that are willing to say objectively true, uncomfortable things. And then I want somebody who's smart, right? I want somebody who's resilient. I want somebody who people like. And I want somebody who likes to work and who is comfortable with conflict. And I kind of need all of those.
I've heard an argument, I've been coached to the argument that industry, domain, knowledge, experience isn't nearly as important as, in my world, software sales, high velocity, same ACV, those sort of things. But it's been my experience that what you said is true. And that if you can get the best of both.
So let's say hypothetically we're interviewing someone for Contractor Commerce, and they absolutely have all of the software skill set that we want, and they have none of the capability in the market, right? Fine. So I have a simple thing that I want to do is I just want to give them some content to read, and then I want to test them on it. Because, Kevin Weber learned it, he learned it. People can learn things, but they have to want to learn it, right? And there are a lot of people who want to come in and be exactly who they are and get paid for that. And that's how it is. And I need people who view themselves, I'm sure you've read Carol Dweck, growth mindset, all that stuff. I need somebody who thinks I'm going to be better tomorrow than I was yesterday, right? And that can manifest itself as learning a space, right? So like, as an example, there's a company I helped hire some people, and there's a guy who was exactly what we're talking about. Everything but market. Yeah. And I said, I don't think I can recommend hiring you because I don't think that this market interests you. And he said, how can I prove that otherwise? And I said, tell you what, our target market consists of this kind of company, and there are 10 of them within a 30-minute drive of your house, right? Are you willing, I'll pay you to do it. Are you willing to go visit 3 of them tomorrow? Walk in the door, introduce yourselves, ask to be shown around, all that kind of stuff. The guy FaceTimed me from all 3. Okay? And I was like, okay, you can come, okay, fine. You can come on board, right? So that works for me. But I think that choosing to not have industry experience is an interesting gamble.
Final 2 questions. I want to be respectful of your time. The latest generation of college graduates, you're close to this. You have students in undergrad, sounds like postgrad now. Those kids adults, they maybe grew up during the Zoom era. Are they getting a bad rap? Is it Well, tell me about that, Jim, the next generation of
Yeah. All right.
young workers.
So, yeah. So, a couple things about them. They are, they're really great people. They're really great people. They have lived a really different childhood and adolescence than I did or you did, because they've been subjected to social media, COVID lockdowns, a lot of sort of a much more divisive sort of feeling in America, and the advent of AI. And so they have this sort of pessimism and concern about themselves, their place in the world, that I never felt. Super talented individual that I work with said to me the other day, she said, I just, I don't know what the future is going to be like here now. And Paul, I never thought that. Oh, did you ever think that? No. So they had this nagging doubt about themselves and the world, and I believe it's my responsibility and yours to disabuse them of that doubt. I mean, their fears may be real, but simply worrying about the ambiguous potential downsides in the future is a certain way to fail, right? I mean, that's like a paved path to failure. And so I work hard to tell them, listen, like a high agency person in this world can seize enormous advantage because your competition, unlike my competition back when I was a kid, yours is distracted, right? They're distracted and they're disaffected. Mine was no. Mine was dialed in and working hard. Just start marching in the direction you want to go, right? There are going to be unexpected things that happen to you, and some of them are going to be really bad, and you're going to be okay. You're going to persevere, and you're going to be fine on the other side. And they're skeptical of that message. They are, but I love them. They're great people. I mean, like this morning, just before we jumped on, I was given free invites to Cloud Co-work. And I sent out a note to the students and said, who wants it? And they were gone. So, I hope we see them a world where they can enjoy a great life the way that I have and the way that you have. And I hope that they're there to accept it. What do you think? You're around them.
Very similar thoughts. The world they grew up in is so different. I mean, I have kids that age. I have a son who's, going to be, he's an entrepreneur already, which is really cool. It's another story, but it's just a different world. So they need to be viewed through a different lens because it's not the same. For me and probably for you, it was pretty clear what we needed to do. We needed to get to work. We needed to provide. We needed to build. We needed to save. We needed to, you and I share that our first 10 years of our career were in corporate America, and we were high performers and acknowledged for that and earned and did and moved around and did all those things. But I worry that I think of a lot of my son's friends or, people in that kind of a demographic. And I worry that they're not going to have a hard enough job for a long enough period of time to build the grit, capability, and those sort of things. I think maybe expectations have changed, but the world has changed. I mean, we're going to have to cut this off because of time, but oh my gosh, the labor output is going to change because of AI in a way that, we can't even barely predict in March 26th.
And the supply of bad news exceeds your ability to consume it. And I don't know where I would have found bad news when I was 25 years old.
Yeah. I've went through, I've gone to great lengths to barely be able to hear bad news now to a fault. I mean, there are current events going on that I'm just finding out about that are important to know. So, Chris, thank you so much for your time, by the way, for your patience.
I think it's great. I'm really proud of what you're doing, and I congratulate you on your success. It was really pleasant talking to you today.